So we went to this other church that was close to our house, and I called it Church Incorporated. So it had a very distinct setup. It was very dark. There was a laser light show. There was 20
Yeah.
minutes of music. There was
Yeah.
the video telling you to volunteer everywhere. And it felt very canned and it just didn't resonate with me. I know a lot of people love that. At one point, I loved that, and it was a total miss for me. So the last book I bought told the Bible in order, and I was reading this book about all the stories in order, and I was like, this book is crazy. It's crazy. Like, Lot did what? Like, it suddenly things were like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So I just struggled with not wanting to be blasphemous, but also wanting the truth, wanting to seek the truth. And so when I got away from that and started reading things like Gabby Bernstein's book Super Attractor, put me on a totally different path, because she said you could meet your spirit guide, and I was able to start free writing channeling. What is a light language? What is that?
Oh, light language?
Yeah.
God. So as you're talking, I feel like going straight into it. And I'm trying to hold myself back because of this interview. But it's the same thing that you're talking about, where you just get downloads, but my hands do this thing here. I do tapping on my body. Hi, I am Dr. Cindy Joseph on The Wish Fulfilled, and today we're bringing you another amazing episode. Tell me, what happens when the stories you were raised on are no longer a match for the story your soul wants to write? Today we're going to dive into a gifted romance author who shares how walking away from traditional religion helped her walk closer to herself. Miss Jessica Lemmon, how are you?
Oh, that's so beautiful. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. So, walk us back to how did religion originally shape your early sense of identity and morality?
Well, I was raised, I won't say I was raised in the church, but we went to church a lot, and it was like the fire and brimstone kind of preaching, if you're familiar with that,
Yes.
you're going to hell if you do this, you're not if you do this.
Uh-huh.
So I think it sort of put me on a path of always striving to be good enough. Did I do that right? Is that okay? Am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah.
Um, I remember church being very boring and just sitting next to my mom. And then occasionally she'd pull out like a stick of Wrigley's gum, and she would always rip it in half. You know how it came in foil? So just rip it in half, give me
Uh-huh.
half of it, her eat half of it. And we would just be like, is this over yet?
Yeah, I remember those days myself. Church was all about order and authority and hierarchy. Yes, I definitely remember that. How did it influence the themes or messages in your early writing?
Well, I don't know that it did, because I felt like what I was writing, because I'm a romance novelist, so I felt like it was outside of what was allowed or acceptable. And at the
Uh-huh.
time I was writing my first romance novel, I was actually a member of a church and very involved. And I'm like, can I even tell people I'm doing this? Like, so I think it was just me. It was like, am I brave enough to tell this story? Do I have enough courage to tell it honestly and not hold back? And I think I probably did hold back a little bit in my earlier novels, but yeah, I just remember feeling a little like conflicted, like, am I doing something wrong?
Yeah, we call that cognitive dissonance,
Yeah,
where it's
right.
like two different things are kind of being held in your head at the same time. When did you first notice that you were drifting away from traditional beliefs?
I think it was so what got me, like, I was, raised in the church, and then I was like working at a restaurant where I met my husband, and it was like, my days were like work at the restaurant, my nights were like go out to the bar, hang out with the friends, and so I felt
Okay.
like there was a definite break. It's like, well, I'm
Yeah.
definitely off the path, so that's not for me anymore.
Hmm.
And then one day, I served the guy at my table this great big beer, and my friend was working behind the bar, and he said, "Do you see that guy you just served the beer to?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "That's my pastor." And I said, tell me more about this church you go to.
Yeah.
So that was the church I became the member of. So our pastor wasn't fire and brimstone. He was honest, and he was like giving a TED talk every week, and I was rapt. I was just so interested in that. I forget your question, where we were going with that. I was
No,
setting
no,
that
it's
up for
good.
something, but yeah, go ahead.
So what themes do you think you picked up on around that time? Like what would make up your spiritual sense or identity at that time with
Oh,
that new transition?
yeah, I feel like there was suddenly I belonged. Suddenly
Mhm,
those two worlds kind of merged together and I
mhm,
fit somewhere. And I really loved learning about the Bible, and I loved there was like questions every week and little handouts, and we could go home and journal and study. And I was involved in, we did marriage coaching, which is, they were like, the pastor and his wife pulled us over and they're like, we'd love for you guys to be marriage coaches because we're guessing you guys lived together before you were married. And I was like, yes. And they were like, yeah, that's good because some people do, and we want them to relate to people who have gone through that. But it was a very interesting, yeah. And then we we had moved and we kept driving to this church, which was about 50 minutes away, which is a little bit of a haul. And I was like, let's just go to this local church. Our pastor was leaving. He was doing more to teach pastors of other churches and less time talking to us. So we went to this other church that was close to our house, and I called it Church Incorporated. So it had a
mhm.
very distinct setup. It was very dark. There was a laser light show. There was 20
Yeah,
minutes of music. There was
yeah.
the video telling you to volunteer everywhere. And it felt very canned and it just didn't resonate with me. I know a lot of people love that. At one point, I loved that. And it was a total miss for me. So I think that's when I started to question, am I, am I really showing up for the right reason? That my earlier pastor used to call them the frozen chosen because they would just sit in the chair and just sit and not really do anything. And I wanted to be, I wanted to be active in my own life and doing the things I wanted to do. So, yeah.
So that was like three different church environments. Your fire brimstone,
Yeah.
then you have this freer church environment, and then you have church incorporated. At that point in time when you were at church incorporated, take me back to that place. What were you feeling at the time around spirituality? Did you feel connected? Did you feel like it answered all of your questions? Did you feel like it was really feeding your soul?
No, definitely not. I felt like when I went, it was almost inauthentic to go because I was so disconnected from the message it's like I heard the words and I could appreciate the sermon and I liked the music was fine, but it just was not connecting in a deep way for me.
Mhm.
And after that, we actually moved again. We lived in that house like 14 years, and then we moved to this lake community where I live now. It's a very small town. And I purposely was like, did not seek out a church here. I just did Bible study on my own and, had a book with like your daily reading, and I would do Bible study. And eventually that also started to feel, I guess everything started to feel really restrictive. Like
Mhm.
I was trying to get to God, and I was going through like this little tunnel to get to him, right? Like one of those little hamster houses. And it was
Mhm.
like, I feel like it should be more open than that. I feel like it should
Mhm.
be more accessible than that.
Mhm. So take me to the moment where you wanted change, or sought more for you.
Hmm. I mean, I think it was really gradual. I remember the last time really being, really Bible journaling and being prayerful in that old way, let's call it, was when COVID hit, right? We were all so filled with fear, or at least I'll speak for myself. I was filled with fear and I wasn't sure what was coming. And it kind of took me back to that, wanting that connection again.
Mhm.
But then it just started petering off. The last book I bought told the Bible in order. And I was reading this book about all the stories in order, and I was like, this book is crazy. Crazy. Like Lot did what? Like it suddenly things were like, Wait a minute."
Yeah.
So I just struggled with not wanting to be blasphemous, but also wanting the truth, wanting to seek the truth.
You had
And so when
questions.
I got away from that and started reading things like Gabby Bernstein's book Super Attractor, put me on a totally different path because she said you could meet your spirit guide, and I was able to start free writing channeling
Mm,
and pulling in information from the ether that I didn't know was even an option before.
mm, hmm. Man, that is a deep dive, isn't it?
That was a deep dive. That
The
was a
page
real deep
definitely
dive.
turned in
I
for
mean,
sure.
I just was so fascinated by, I mean, I remember when I was a kid going to the bookstore and there would be the New Age section, and I was always pulled to the New Age section, but I would never let myself, I would like go peek in a book, read a few pages and put it back because I knew I wasn't supposed to be looking into that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like we don't even call it New Age anymore, do we? It's just like it's development. It's,
Hmm.
yeah.
Wow. So channeling your spirit guide in writing, I
Uh-huh.
want to know all about it. Like,
Yes.
what was
So
that like?
So Gabby has this beautiful meditation that will help you. It's like a breathing exercise that you can
Hmm.
do. And then you
Hmm.
just put your pen on the paper and you write until the music stops. And so I
Hmm.
started writing, and you're like, you start out with something that's always the same, like, thank you to the highest power for blah, 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 blah. You know, you kind of write that to get you started, and then you just
Hmm.
start writing. And as I was writing, I'm watching these words come out and feeling like, well, I'm a writer. You know,
Hmm.
writing books also feels like channeling. Sometimes the next day I read what I wrote and think, oh, wow, that was really good. I don't even know where that came from, you know? It's not always like a fully conscious thing. So I
Yeah.
wrote this whole thing out and I reread it, and I was just, one of the lines that stands out to me that I remember the most is, uh, look at the stars, it's where you are from. And I
Mm.
thought, whoa, everything in the writing was from a perspective of up here looking down, talking about
Hmm.
the things that were going on from a much higher perspective. And I was just having doubts, and this is weird, and I can't tell anyone I'm doing this. Right. Sure, fiction writer, you're channeling, right? And
Hmm.
I walked downstairs to tell my husband about this experience because John and I really do share just everything. And
Hmm.
he was reading a book by the medical medium. And he goes, get this thing I just read. And he reads
Hmm.
it to me. And in the book, it said that half of your soul was on earth, but half of your soul is in the stars. And I just
Hmm.
started to cry because I felt like it was just, yes, it's real.
Hmm.
It's real.
Hmm.
It's real.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so since then, I've channeled that. She called herself Maud. I've come to know that Maud is a they, and there is a kind of a community group of spirits around.
Hmm.
And I had one really crazy channeling that happened one night, and it was a very different voice. And I was told I was a warrior twice. And I kept writing and I kept writing and I kept writing. And then at the end, it was like Michael. And I just put my pen down and I put the book on my lap and I went, like Archangel Michael? Like, that's too much. That's too
Like,
much.
I don't know.
Way too much. And then
Oh.
I looked it up, and it was like Archangel Michael is a warrior known for having a sword. It was like all of these things that were kind of in the writing. And it was just a time I just needed a lot of encouragement. So yeah, I don't tell that story very often, but that's the truth.
Listen to me, Jessica. Listen to me. I don't know if this is going to be included or not. However, I just started getting my light language and it has been bananas
What is that?
as you're talking.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
What is a light
Yeah.
language? What is that?
Oh, light language.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So as the thing is, as you're talking, I feel like going straight into it. Like, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to hold myself back because of this interview. But it's the same thing that you're talking about, where
Yeah.
you just get downloads. But mine's is more so I have like another spiritual guide, and she told me that I was a shaman in my past life,
Oh, love.
to animals, really, really large animals. And ironically, I'm afraid of animals
Yeah.
in this current life.
Oh,
And she said that the reason for that is because the power it's my resistance to the power and taking on like the emotions of animals like horses and stuff like that, can be a lot, and I'm afraid of the power that comes with that. But ironically, my light language, it comes where my toes are doing this here, my mouth sometimes opened up and it's like a lion's roar is coming out. um
whoa.
it's calmed down since
Yeah.
then. I mean, it's fresh, but my heart. I
That's
am about
interesting
to.
because I don't do that very often anymore, and I did, and
Okay.
I think I'm a little afraid of it too. I
It,
can't even say why because it always feels so good and encouraging, but
yeah,
it's a lot to get your head around.
yeah, it is. Because it feels outside of you, kind of, but then at the same time. So for me, it would come on whenever I would listen to stories of aliens. So when you said you came from the sky, it started to come up.
Yeah.
Like
Oh
it
man.
just it's like an agreement with
Yes.
it's like an amen. It's happening. Like it just starts to come in. But my hands do this thing here. I do
Wow.
tapping on my body. I don't know if it's similar to Reiki because I'm not familiar with Reiki too much, but I do a tapping on my body. I do the
I mean, there is
swirls.
EFT, right? There is tapping. Have you ever done
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, I've never.
Oh yeah,
Um,
and this is the spot. This is one of the most powerful tapping spots is your collar.
okay, yeah. So it does it on my chest and then my face and then back
Yeah.
to my chest and back to my
Oh
face. And
man.
then it does the spirals going this way and the spirals clockwise.
Love it.
It does the swirls. I mean, it's a lot. But then afterwards, I feel like something just got readjusted, so to
Oh,
speak.
amazing.
And whenever I think of my manifestations, like strongly, intensely, like, oof, I'm definitely gonna get that. It goes wild. And it just really streamlined to me how our thoughts really do create. Because when I started to research the mudras, what you do with your fingers, it was saying that it's just it's pushing out energy towards that manifestation and just like making it more and more manifested, so to speak. It's putting energy behind it. Um, so yeah, this
How
is where we
cool.
are.
Yeah.
How
I
interesting
didn't
that
know
I'm
I was
sitting
going to
here with
say
you
any of
today.
that. So here we are.
Yes.
I do that though. Sometimes I'll start talking and I'll just dare myself to like just say it, and see what happens.
Oh my
Be
God.
brave. Go.
You've made my day today. This is amazing.
Yay.
So, what I want to know is like, what did you learn from the writing? Do you feel like it like resonated with you, that it answered some of your questions? Um, did you begin to learn more about yourself? What did those writings mean to you?
It meant that I was not navigating this by myself and that I was not separate. I feel like traditional religion a lot of times teaches us that we are separate from
Hmm.
God and separate from. And then I felt like the world was just like the spiritual world was way bigger than I ever intended because I only was ever taught like you ask Jesus to come into your heart. And I remember getting saved as a kid, and then I remember going to my great aunt's Pentecostal church, and they were saving people, and I thought I'll just get saved again and make sure it took. Right? I just wanted to make sure, like, make sure I
Hmm.
was going the right place. So I just feel like it opened up that spiritual world, and in fact, when I prayed, I went from saying God, angels, universe to God, mod, angels, universe because I wanted to include who I was talking to,
Yeah.
and it felt so natural. It just kind of bumped right in there, and yeah, it felt
Aw,
good.
that is so sweet. Um, So I almost feel like I'm hearing that it challenged some of your previous paradigms, like your
Yeah,
previous belief systems.
yes, for sure. But then it felt right, and I feel like you always know the truth when you hear it. There's just
Hmm.
for me, there's just this inner, like, yeah, you know, like,
Hmm.
and now it's like wide open. I hear all sorts of crazy stuff, and I'm like, that's probably true.
Hmm.
I think I heard recently that like they think Bigfoot is an interdimensional being that just travels through like portals, and I'm like, okay, like who am I to say?
Yeah. I
Who
mean,
am I to say
recently
what's
I've
real?
also heard about like the purpose of dinosaurs and
Oh,
how they're really dragons.
yeah.
And
I love that theory, right?
yeah, yes.
Love that.
And the whole concept of fairies and how they're
Yep.
just smaller beings. Um, but yeah, it really brings you because I don't know if you know, but I have 2-year-old triplets, and we
Dude,
do a lot of,
to me. Oh, yeah. Oh
Sesame
my
Street and
goodness.
all the shows, and
Yeah.
it's nothing but animals talking, dinosaurs, fairies, make believe,
Yeah.
increase your imagination.
And that's what, when you're a kid, I think this, for me anyway, I always believed that magic was real. And then
Hmm.
I grew up and was told to, because I'm a cartoonist too, so I love to draw and anything creative, draw and write and just, um, do like really fun creative things. And then I grew up and it was like, oh, now I have to get serious and get a real job and, you
Hmm.
know, get a graphic design degree and then work in the basement of a building that has all gray walls. And I'm like, this is wrong. What's going on?
Hmm.
And something shifted for me. I think it was right around when I got published and I was able to get paid for what I was doing. And I just had this inner sense of like, I knew the magic was real. So I've had a bunch of little moments like that, like the channeling thing. Like I knew it was real. I knew my whole life it was real and I was trying to ignore it. So I more believe in that mystical, magical way that things happen. Like when I write, I plot my book, but
Hmm.
I have tried to attend seminars where they tell you how to write a book, and I'm like, no, 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 this is messing with my process. I
Right.
must leave this room immediately because I think there's just some magic that comes through. I really, really do.
Speaking of writing your books, do you now write love stories with depth and freedom and spiritual meaning now, or has that not flowed into your writing?
Oh, I think it's always been there. I think I've just played it a lot safer. When I wrote my first couple of books, I've written like 47 or 48 of them now. So, but I've always used my romance novels as a place that I could be really, really honest because you're safe. You're embodying a character in that moment, right? So, my experience of not having children and not being able to have children got funneled into a story, and it wasn't about that at all. But this characters got together in book one, and by book four, she had a stepson, but she didn't have her own child. And people were asking, where's Charlie's baby? How come Charlie has a baby? Why didn't you write Charlie having a baby? And I said, because not all women get to have babies. And she's whole and complete without having a baby. And
Yeah,
that's a story I get to tell through
yeah.
fiction without getting really dark about it. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like without
Yeah.
really peeling back all of that, you get to put all of those heavy, heavy emotions into the novels, especially in romance. It's all emotion,
Mhm.
and that journey.
Yeah, I think and because you're writing romance novels, I think it's even more important because we get caught up in this fairy tale ending that everything must always come out like picture perfect, and sometimes it just is, and it's kind of like how God and on this earth with creation, like we have so much diversity, and sometimes people are and sometimes people are not of whatever piece of identity that you can think of. And sometimes things are just is, and it's helpful to have that difference so that people don't feel like if I don't end up like X, then
Yeah.
it's not, perfect, so to speak.
Yeah. I love telling characters. Like, I think when I first started, I did like, it was also very trendy in romance at the time to be like, the girl didn't like some part of her body. And whatever part of her body, whether her breasts were too small or her butt was too big, was always the thing I made the hero love the most. And then it became like
Oh,
the fact that she was always running late or disorganized or she talked too much and that always became the thing that he accepted the most. And that
mm.
was the thing that made him fall in love with her. And
Oh
that
my.
was just a way of like celebrating that we're all okay. We're all really okay. Because I think women, we really beat ourselves up over all these little things, you know, like we were at one point I was like, maybe I need to be part of the 5 a.m. club and this will fix my life. And then I did it 2 days in a row and I'm like, screw that. I'm not going to have the 5 a.m. anymore. So just that acceptance and yeah,
Yeah. I think that is the ultimate expression of love, acceptance.
I do too.
Hmm.
I do too.
I love the way you express that in all of your books. Um, what are some other ways that you identify love in your books?
I think it happens in a lot of different ways. So, especially in the tropes of romance, where you have one popular trope is friends to lovers, and then you have an enemies to lovers. So, enemies to lovers is really fun to write because you have all this contention between the hero and the heroine at first, and they
Mhm.
really don't like each other. And he's got all of these attributes that she really doesn't like, and then you get to dig deeper and find out why. Like I
Mm.
wrote this NFL player who was injured and he was no longer an NFL player, so he became like a somebody on the field was doing interviews and he misspoke and said something and got lost his career and was working with a journalist to kind of get his reputation back, and everybody just knew him to be this notorious jerk. And then you find out in chapter 3 that he's got a brother who never has it together, and he's got a nephew and he's always watching his nephew, paying for his brother's car and trying to like do all these really good things behind the scene while having this outward mask of this is who I am. I'm this bad boy that doesn't care about anything. And
Mhm.
then the heroine gets to really dig through that and find out what's underneath. And I find that so fun to really show
Mhm.
the other side of who we're projecting versus the really soft spot. You know, something I always thought about. I'm like, the baddest boy around still has to go to the BMV.
How beautiful. I feel like relating this to spirituality, I feel like that is also how we should see one another is like not really putting immediate judgment on because we never know what that backstory is like. And it once we learn it, it always help us to just understand
Yeah.
that person's point of view.
Totally. I've always said, I was like, I've figured it out. It's just we have all these pokey parts and other people have all these pokey parts and then we just poke them against each other. That's what we're out here doing. Well, all of our hurts are just out in the open and you know, getting triggered all the time. That's kind of what it feels like. So once you're aware that's happening, you're like, like you said, you can see underneath that there's another story there and
Mhm.
explore that in somebody. So I always wonder what makes people tick. Always.
So, what would you define as your spiritual freedom today?
Oh man, I think spiritual freedom is just not having to drag myself out of bed on Sunday morning and go to church
Okay.
and posture. You know what I mean? Um, the biggest spiritual freedom is knowing that God is within reach without somebody else telling me if I'm doing it right, if I'm doing it okay. Knowing at any moment I can talk to God, knowing at any moment I can pray, knowing at any moment I can sit down and just journal a few questions and get some answers is that's freedom to me.
Mm, beautiful. Are there daily or creative practices that you do for yourself to maintain your spirituality or your connection to your
I
higher
am
self?
incredibly inconsistent, so never every day the same thing, but
Uh-huh.
I pull tarot cards a lot
Uh-huh.
and always get intuitive messages from them, always. And sometimes I will, in my daily journaling, work through, you know, the beliefs that I'm trying to improve or affirmations. And other times I will just, dear God, and I'll write a letter. Um, Sometimes I'll just draw a picture. So it's whatever's coming through that day.
And that is your spiritual freedom.
That's my spiritual freedom. Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Any affirmations or quotes that currently inspire you?
Man, the more I relax, the easier it is to receive. Is
Oh.
what I'm working on. Somebody who was incredibly in my masculine and thought that I had to keep moving, keep hustling, keep going. to make things happen. And so just relaxing into that. And it's still hard for me. Like today, I'm going to go get my nails done after this. And my brain is going, but maybe you should edit 20 or 30 pages before you do that. Even though I built it in as a day off, there's still a little resistance to that, you know?
What would be an advice that you would give to someone who is currently at the crossroads that you were at similar earlier in your life, where just trying to redefine things for themselves and being okay with there may be a different option here?
I think the best advice that I would give is you can trust yourself. You absolutely can trust yourself. And if you feel that jumping, nervous fear thing saying, oh, I can't do that, it's not right, it's not yours. So it's something I always ask myself. Why am I thinking this? And is it even mine? Because we've inherited so many thoughts and beliefs from other people. So trust yourself. I've always been pulled to New Age. I've always resonated with, like when The Secret was out, I paid $20 to watch it on my computer. It was the only way you could watch it at the time, you know, and John and I are huddled around our little Dell desktop watching this movie. It just so resonated with me. So I think, yeah, trust yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Being able to just allow your body to feel into what's real for you, and it may be different from what you've known all your life, and it may be different from what other people may be saying, but that is also okay. Difference is
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And that's the growth, I think, is when it doesn't match what's around you, having the courage, which I have just had to build that courage because I publish books with sex scenes in them all over the whole world. So, you know, those Pentecostal aunts and and my mom reading the books and stuff, I'm like, I just have to own who I am. I have to be as honest as possible. And they all still love me. You know, I thought, I guess if I get disowned, I guess if this happens, I guess, which I didn't really, wasn't really afraid would happen. And yeah, they're all still here. They all still love me. It's fine. Yep. I just have a really
Okay.
weird job. That's all.
No, you have a job of ultimate expression,
Yeah.
and that is amazing. I'm so glad you did not go into the halls of corporate and white walls and a desk. You have the gift of ultimate expression right now, and I'm so happy that it's going well and you continue to thrive. Tell us what's next for you. Where can we find you?
Oh, I love it. JessicaLemmon.com. I just started a membership community that is both for readers and for writers because I love to talk about writing and the process of writing. And again, that trusting yourself through your writing. I think so many people give up because it's a journey getting that book right. So I have a membership called the Lemon Society. We just started it in May, and I love it. And we do live calls, and I share early cover reveals and the book I'm writing on. I will share a real-time edit of something I'm doing for the writing side, but then I will share a little snippet and a character introduction for the reader side. So that's really fun. And I have my Write for Fun course. Enrollment closes soon, but I always have that going on, either on a waiting list or open at the time. So that's
Awesome. So just click the links in the description box if you would like to connect with Miss Jessica Lemmon. I thank you so much for your time. This was an amazing conversation. Thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you for having me, Cindy. This was great.